A signal. That's all it ever was, a signal. Even years after nearly all of the machines were destroyed, after the humans cleared the sky and forgot about them, and after the world shifted and swallowed the machine city into the sea, the signal was still there. Still working. The trapped humans powered the machines, not the Matrix itself, and the machines, even with the humans gone, could manage to keep the signal alive. For nearly 1,000,000 years it held strong, as if the machines and the programs inside the Matrix were waiting for something, or someone, falling. He didn't know how it came to this. The last thing he remembered before things went black was Sasuke taking a fatal hit for him from Zabuza's masked helper. He remembered seeing red and throwing a punch, but couldn't remember how he got into the position he was in now, falling from the bridge being built by the man he was attempting to protect, into the cold, dark water below. Feeling a crash, he registered hitting the water, but didn't fight the waves as they pulled him under into the dark. What's the point, thought. Maybe the village would be happier if I just drowned. I doubt more than 5 people care whether I live or die. He suddenly felt a great deal of pain as, while he wasn't fighting against the water, the fox certainly was. Naruto wasn't fully sure if the pain was from the seal, red chakra still leaking from it, or from the water that filled his lungs with each gasp. As he was ready to pass out, Naruto felt a surge of the fox's chakra flare and seemed to cause a pulse in the water. Not 2 seconds later, a red light flickered on and what appeared to be a squid made of metal shot out of nowhere and carried the half-dead boy away. And all was black again. Time skip. Naruto awoke in a coughing fit, spitting out water onto the metal floor of the strange room he found himself in. Standing up, he saw several screens of black with strange green symbols raining down. And then, to his amazement and horror, he noticed a skeleton, but what was odd was that this skeleton seemed to be lying in a chair with a large plug in the base of its skull. Taking a closer look, Naruto touched the skeleton, a very bad move, considering as he did so, more of the fox's chakra flared from the seal. Naruto suddenly felt a great pain near the base of his skull and all went black for a 3rd time that day. When he awoke this time, it was in a pure white, circular room covered in what appeared to be television screens. And he was not alone. 4 people stood around an old man in the chair who was wearing a suit and had a white beard and serious-looking demeanor, the architect. One was an old woman with dark skin, who gave off an air of kindness and gave Naruto a comforting smile, the oracle. Another of them, this one male, wore a white shirt and black pants and had circular sunglasses, Seraph. Another male stood with almost the same stance and expression as the one in white, but he wore a black shirt, black pants, and wore a leather jacket with slightly rounded sunglasses, Neo. And the last one, a little old man with dark hair and glasses with several rings of keys on his belt. Do I need to say it? The old man in the chair looked at Naruto and said, in a no-nonsense type of voice, we've been waiting for you. Preview end. So, what do you guys think? I won't give everything away, you'll have to read it. And I say once again that I am not putting any of my stories on hiatus or putting them up for adoption. It's just that I have several ideas that I feel I need to let out. Also, in the actual story, coming soon, it will be in far greater detail and the names of the people will not be put out. The only reason I did it here was in case my descriptions are really bad, which they usually are. Also, anyone who has sent a review of Konoha's Ace of Knaves with their pairing request in it, should vote on the poll instead, cause it takes forever sorting through emails looking for votes. Please use the poll. Disclaimer: I do not own Naruto or Teen Titans, you all know the speech stuff. However, if anyone is new to the site, or me in particular, I will post it on this chapter only. Normal talking, hello. Normal thinking, hello. Demon/boss summon /Naruto. As the fox, what's up? Demon/boss summon thinking, what an idiot. Now on with the story. White. All around him was an endless void of white, threatening to enter him and take him into the nothingness. Naruto clutched his head in pain, trying to figure out how it had come to this. Flashback. Rasengan/Chidori. The 2 incredible genin fought their hardest. They knew this was it. The last stand of 2 opposing powers, one fighting to protect, the other to kill. The power of the seals both boys were marked with empowering them, forcing them on. From Naruto, the power of the Kyubi no Kitsune coursed through him, giving off a red aura and the killing intent of a feral beast. From Sasuke, the power of the curse seal urged him on, whispering dark thoughts to him as he prepared to kill his best friend, someone he looked to as a brother. Through the corrupted power, his entire physical being had changed. He now had a black four-pointed star across his nose, gray skin, and sported two wings that almost seemed to look like webbed hands. As much as Sasuke hated to admit it, the two were fighting as equals, and Naruto knew it. He remembered being swallowed by a sphere of energy and a pain in his chest, then nothing. Flashback end. Another flare of demonic chakra surged from the seal, and Naruto did everything in his power to stay conscious. Sadly, he soon found himself in the dark sewer of his mindscape. Feeling a sudden jerking sensation, the blonde ninja was pulled into the very center of his mindscape. To a place he had already come to know. The cage of the most powerful demon in history, the Kyuubi. You very nearly got the both of us killed, Runt. Lucky for you, I'm not ready to die yet, boomed a voice Naruto knew well by this point. Sure enough, two gigantic eyes appeared, along with the smirking mouth of the great beast. Since when do you think you have a say in when I get to die? Maybe I wanted it, you never know. As a matter of fact, I do no whelp. Like every weak human, you are afraid to die. I have seen your fears, and I have heard your thought. Like it or not, I know more about you than you do. Now, the reason I called you here is that, if you haven't noticed, you are trapped in limbo, the space between worlds. Stay here too long and we both die. I myself have never been here personally. Though I can phase through dimensions, I pass through so fast it's as if I move from one world to the next. You got into this mess through a major power surge caused by yours and that bastard son of an Uchiha's strongest attacks. So, only an even greater power surge will get you out. So I'm stuck here. Damn it, silence. As I was saying, only a greater power surge will get you out. I can help you, and what do you get in return? If it's freedom, then no deal. What I gain is someone who will take over my titles of Fox King, Lord of the Nine Hells, and Emperor of the Demon Realm. The deal is, you become my successor. I give you the whole of my power, and all my knowledge. Using them will take training, but I can teach you what you need to know. I have knowledge of nearly every jutsu your world has created, among other things. You will have the knowledge to perform them, but like I said, you will have to work to gain the skill to use them. There's a catch to this, I just know it. You catch on quick. The catch is that you must choose two females to mate with and continue the Fox clan legacy. What happens to you? I will become a mere thought, a voice and teacher in your head. I wouldn't ask any more questions, boy. Time may go drastically faster here, but your time in limbo is almost up. It's now or never. Live or die, make your choice. Fine, I'll do it. Excellent. Suddenly, a claw shot out from between the cage bars and, grabbing Naruto, hoisted him into the air. Naruto watched as the fox's tails shot between the cage bars as well, slamming into him and causing immense pain as they were seemingly being absorbed, while a tail grew from his tailbone with every one that he absorbed. The first 5 tails are each gifted with an element: fire, wind, water, earth, and lightning. The 6th tail is the tail of insight and foresight. And the last 3 tails are the tails of mind, body, and soul. When all combine, you become a force that can only be stopped when your own will fails. You become a force of nature. As he spoke, the final 3 tails were absorbed and Naruto became a dark silhouette illuminated by a strange white light from within. It expanded as red, demonic chakra merged with him, and Naruto screamed as the power overtook him, and in a flash of light and pain, he was shot from his mindscape into the waiting new world. The fox fell to the floor, exhausted, but happy at what it had done. Give him hell, Runt, give him hell. With that, the once great and powerful Kyuubi fell into an easy sleep. Titan's Tower, Jump City. Raven shot up in bed, her body soaked in a cold sweat. She had felt something. What she felt she had no idea, but it was coming, and it had more power than she had yet to ever feel, even from her father. Suddenly, a red light began flashing and the tower alert had activated. Looking out her window at Jump City, she could deftly hear the team leader, Robin, calling them over the intercom system. Getting dressed, she was overtaken by a black silhouette of a raven and phased through the floor. In the main control room, which also happened to be the team's living room and kitchen, Robin watched the rest file in. First in was Cyborg, the half-man half-machine member of the team. Yawned as he entered. Next was Starfire, the orange-skinned, red-haired beauty of the team, dragging in the fourth team member, Beast Boy, who was still clutching his pillow and attempting to sleep as he was dragged across the floor. Last but not least came the final team member, Raven, who phased through the ceiling. "Dude! What could be so important that we couldn't wait till morning?" shouted Beast Boy, the green-skinned teen, who had been smacked awake by Raven, earning the dark girl a glare that, if it could kill, would put her 6 feet under, bringing up a live view of the city on the monitors. Though the group could see it clearly from the windows, the Titans watched as the power steadily went out around the whole city, even darkening Titan's Tower, which shouldn't have been possible from a normal power outage as they had separate generators powering the tower, meaning whatever caused this blackout wasn't natural. Forming a green sphere of energy around her hand, Starfire lit the tower enough for everyone to see. "Cyborg, can you scan to find out where the blackout originated?" asked Robin. No answer. Turning, the group, even the usually stoic Raven, were shocked, as Cyborg stood there, motionless, his normally blue areas turned gray, and his cybertronic eye no longer glowing. "Cyborg?" said Starfire warily, as Beast Boy, now totally awake, began to poke and prod the half-machine man, only to pull back as Cyborg, deactivated and unable to support himself, tipped over. Suddenly, all the power began to turn back on, the city once again lighting up, the tower alarms once again blaring. "Someone mind tellin' me why I'm on the floor?" The group looked to see Cyborg standing up and dusting himself off, but was suddenly under attack by Starfire, who had him in one of her death grip hugs. Pulling himself out of her grip, he turned to Robin with a face that said, "I'm ready for an explanation." By the looks of what happened, that wasn't just a power outage. Something must have caused a major EMP. But the question is what, said Robin, once again staring at the monitors, looking for the source of said EMP. He eventually found what he was looking for, and with a shout of Titans, go they were off to the docks. Naruto awoke, his head still throbbing, and took in his new surroundings. Tall buildings were everywhere, and he appeared to be near a source of water, based on the gulls. Sure enough, he turned and saw the ocean. Looking down at himself, he figured he would need to change his appearance, as he wasn't thinking that someone with fox ears, claws, and 9 tails would be a common sight. It was then that he felt it. A pain shot through the base of his skull, and he was flooded with the information on how to shapeshift, one of the many abilities he now possessed thanks to the former Kitsune King. Stepping into a dark alley, he changed into something simple until he could actually get clothes. His animalistic features were gone, replaced with his normal looks, though he had grown himself to the height of an average 18-year-old. Though he was really only 16, he had the mind of a 500-million-year-old demon, though still the immaturity of a teenager, though that may just be him. He wore a black hoodie to cover his hair, with a bandana covering his face. He was also sporting his usual ninja sandals and a pair of black jeans. Not the best clothes for fighting, but if he got into a brawl, he could change his form accordingly. Now there were only 2 things left to do. Now to gather some info, and learn the language, whispered Naruto. "I can help with that," spoke the disembodied voice of Kyubi. Suddenly, Naruto felt another pain in the base of his skull as more of Kyubi's knowledge was accessed by Naruto. "Now, just find some pure sap and lock eyes. Once you do that, focus chakra to your eyes and focus on what you need to know." "I know, you just gave me the info on how to do it," idiot, replied Naruto. "Quiet brat. You need only think your words and I shall hear them." Dacha thought back Naruto. And so he waited for a few minutes for a dock worker to pass by. Sure enough, someone who appeared to be a welder walked past the alley. Taking this opportunity, Naruto grew out 3 of his tails, grabbed the man, and pulled him into the alley. "With the Titans." "Yeah, I saw what happened. I couldn't make it out clearly, but it looked like someone or something just appeared in a red flash. The thing stood up and ran off somewhere. But as it was first appearing, lights started flickering, and then just shut off completely. Some of them even blew up." "Thank you for your time," said Robin as the man walked off. "Man, that's the 3rd guy we talked to, and we still barely got anything. How much longer do we have to stay out here?" shouted Beast Boy. Getting in his face and poking him in the chest, Cyborg yelled, "Until we find out who shut down my tower and my systems." That's how long. Suddenly, the 5 teen heroes heard a scream as the worker who they had just questioned was dragged into an alley by 3 long, what looked to be tails. I think we found him, said Robin. Getting into a battle stance, he yelled out the signature Titans, go! And the team sprang into action. As they got closer, the man ran out screaming. Though most of it was just your normal, everyday terror-filled screams, Raven happened to hear him yelling in my head, oh God, he got in my head. Entering the alley, the team saw nobody and nothing. Running a scan, Cyborg picked up heat and a heartbeat from beneath a large cardboard box. Knocking it over, the group appeared to have disturbed an old homeless man from his sleep. The man woke up, saw the group and shouted, "Don't hurt me, I have no money." The group exited the alley, utterly confused as to where the thing could have gone in such short notice. Suddenly, without warning, sparks started flying as electricity sparked over Cyborg, said Teen screaming as he fell to the ground in a heap. As Cyborg fell, he revealed the old homeless man standing behind him, electricity sparking from his outstretched hand. Then, before everyone's eyes, the old man transformed into a teen about 18 years old, a bandana and hood covering his face, but the group could still see his eyes, and that is what weirded them out the most. They were blood red with slitted pupils. From the ground, Naruto heard the large one yell out, "Man, you did not just crash my systems." Leaning down, Naruto chuckled and said, "Oh, but I did." "You gonna cry about it?" Suddenly, Naruto was hit with several star bolts, knocking him back several feet, but not beating him. As he saw Starfire prepare another one, he quickly channeled chakra to his hand, sending the starbolt at the team's masked assailant. Starfire was shocked when he reached out, caught her starbolt, seemed to examine it for a moment, and throw it back at her. She was so stunned she didn't move in time to dodge it, and fell to the ground, unconscious. Hearing a shout, Naruto turned to see Robin in the air, preparing to strike him with a metal staff. Naruto once again channeled chakra to his hand and grabbed the staff in the air. Whipping around, he used Robin's momentum against himself and flung the boy wonder into the water. Naruto then felt a great pain in his arm. It would seem that the green one, Beast Boy, had morphed into a wolf and was currently biting his arm. This was the fox's turn. He flared an enormous amount of what it liked to call predator-killing intent, causing Beast Boy, with his animal instincts, to let go of Naruto, turn around and run for his life. The only one left was Raven, who formed a shield of dark energy between her and this strange guy who was beating the entire team. After beating on it, Naruto tried channeling chakra again, this time forming a red aura of demon chakra around himself. Leaning forward, he went right through the shield. Deciding that he had caused enough trouble, he simply rushed her and knocked her out. Looking back at his work, Naruto ran up the side of the building and was off to see the city. Gaining his nerve, as the rest of the beaten team gathered, returning to the world of consciousness, or in Robin's case, dryness, Beast Boy asked the question on the whole team's mind. "Dudes? Did we just get our butts handed to us?" Disclaimer: I do not own Naruto or Teen Titans, you idiot of a boy. We could have easily gotten away, but you just had to show off to the good guys that by now think you're a bad guy, shouted the fox in Naruto's mind. A ninja's main weapons should be stealth and surprise. They do not just attempt to fight everyone they see. Cool it, you big furball. From what we got from that dock worker, I had a fairly decent grasp of their abilities. I just wanted to test my own, thought Naruto. A fairly decent grasp is not enough, you whelp. Only they know truly what they are capable of. That little fight taught you nothing, as they were caught unprepared for your type of power, though the cloaked one had power that had a demonic signature. If you really want to test your abilities, do so in a controlled environment, possibly using your clones as opponents, replied the great beast. Alright, geez. You don't have to get so pissed off, I'll be more careful next time, thought back Naruto. He hated to admit it, but the fox had a point. If he had tried that against another shinobi, he probably wouldn't have lived, even with his immense new power. Wait! I sense something. Boy, look to your left, what do you see? Asked Kyubi. He didn't think it was possible, but if he was sensing what Oho was sensing, then they might have a possible ally. Turning, Naruto honestly didn't see anything but buildings and the ocean behind him. Maybe the fox had gone senile. It wouldn't surprise him, The thing was incredibly old. Kyuubi, however, was stretching out with its Yuki, attempting to find out where the energy signature was coming from. He eventually found it coming from deep underground. Dig, said Kyuubi. Find a secure location and begin digging. I will guide you until we find who we are looking for. With that, Naruto jumped to the ground, slamming a Rasengan into it. As he got further and further down, he used the fox's knowledge on Earth-style jutsu to close the entrance. Who was that guy? Asked Beast Boy, he and the others having just returned to the tower. I mean, the only one who could ever even hold his own against us was Slade, and he's dead. I managed to run a scan on the energy he was using, replied Cyborg, checking himself to make sure everything was in working order. It's not every day an EMP shuts you down, and then you get your systems fried. The weird thing is, his power is like Raven's, only it's more concentrated, more dense. As he talked, the Dark Titan merely said nothing as she floated by the group. Robin was busy on the computer, trying to find something, anything that would give them a clue as to who it was who beat the team. Starfire herself was silent. She had never seen someone manage to catch one of her starbolts, let alone examine and throw it back at her. What are we gonna do, man? This guy is good. He basically showed us that Raven's powers are practically useless. He fried my systems, he threw Robin away like he was nothing, and he turned Star's attack against her. By the way, what exactly did he do to you, BB? Said Cyborg. At this point he had everyone's attention. This guy had at least beaten them, but Beast Boy literally just ran away with his tail between his legs. I didn't really know, replied Beast Boy. One minute I was biting his arm, the next minute I felt bloodlust so strong I could almost see myself dying. It was like he was this giant predator, and I was the prey. He shivered slightly, remembering what it felt like. This had Robin worried. Beast Boy could become any animal of his choosing, even become a T-Rex if he chose. He almost couldn't imagine what could put off such an aura of bloodlust that would actually scare Beast Boy away without even attempting to become something bigger. And he really didn't want to. Damn fox, how long do I have to keep digging? Thought Naruto. The Rasengan may be good for tunneling down, but Naruto was beginning to get really tired of holding it up for this long. It wasn't that it was draining, he was just getting bored. He didn't get an answer, however, as the ground he was tunneling through suddenly gave way, and he fell a good long ways until he hit the rocky floor of an underground cavern. You can stop now, said the fox, snickering at his container. Look around, do you see anyone? He asked. Naruto began looking around, until his eyes locked onto a statue of some sort. Walking up to it, he noticed it was of a girl wearing some sort of armor. As he got closer, he noticed a plaque at its feet. Terra, a teen titan, a true friend. As he read those words, Kyuubi was growing more and more confused. She looks like my sister's human form. The power the statue radiates is definitely her power. But this is not Shikaku as I thought it was, said Kyuubi. Now it was Naruto's turn to be confused. Shikaku? You mean the demon sealed in Gaara? How could she possibly be Shikaku? He asked. As I said, boy, this is not my sister. She radiates Shikaku's Yuki as well as normal chakra. There is only one explanation, and that would be that my sister was reincarnated as a human, or maybe half demon considering she contains both chakra and Yuki. But the thing is, to be reincarnated she would have had to die, finished Naruto, already getting what Kyuubi was saying. But what could possibly kill her? Couldn't she just reform with sand like in my fight? Yes, meaning there had to be either no sand anywhere, or she had to have been sealed in something when it happened. Not the red-haired boy, something else. The seal would have had to be much stronger, like the one holding me. On a more positive note, while we are in a different dimension, this means that we are actually more in the far distant future than in a different world entirely. Every outcome of an event splits the universe into different planes. Sensing his container's confusion, he continued, when we went into limbo and you became the new Kyuubi, we produced an outcome of an event. We were simply flung forward in time after the event happened. Whether or not it was a good outcome has yet to be seen. I think I get it. Then do you think there are any remains of the hidden villages? Asked Naruto. I doubt it. For now, she could be a potential ally. You should free her from that prison and bring her with us. And how am I supposed to that, smart one? Asked Naruto. You think your tails are named just for the fun of it? Combine the powers of the final 3 tails and it can restore anyone to life. Focusing, 3 of his tails whipped around violently behind him. Suddenly they began to give off an incredible light which flew into Naruto's hand, forming a sphere the size of a Rasengan in his hand which glowed with every color of the visible spectrum. He didn't know why, but he suddenly felt as if he knew what to do and pressed the orb into the chest of the statue. The glowing orb absorbed directly into the statue, which began glowing in all colors with the same intensity as the orb. The light grew brighter and brighter until a blinding white light filled the cave. As the light died down, the statue shattered, revealing the sleeping girl within, who fell and was caught by Naruto. Picking her up bridal style, he quickly left the cavern to find a place to stay. Somewhere outside the city at the edge of a small forest that was currently burning, a figure lay limp on the ground, smoke rising from his body as though it had been on fire. However, he was anything but dead. He had gray skin, and sported a black, 4-pointed star over his nose. He also sported 2 wings growing from his back that had the appearance of webbed hands. He just laid there for now, unable to move anything but his head. As Sasuke lay there, he found that the curse seal no longer whispered to him, though he could still feel it. It was different, however, as though it had literally become a part of him. He couldn't feel any difference in his power and the power of the seal. Slowly managing to clench his fingers into a fist, he grunted in pain. It was Naruto's fault he was like this, and he swore that he would have his revenge on the blonde. It should have been easy, killing Naruto and gaining the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan. But the blonde had even managed to screw that up. Slowly, as it caused him severe pain, he used his wings to turn himself over, and slowly crawled toward the city lights that called out to him like a beacon. After stealing some money, Naruto quickly checked into a cheap hotel room, laying the girl on the one bed the room had. Or at least he tried, as her sleeping form had latched onto him and refused to let go. So, he just sat down and decided to wait for her to wake up. Flipping on the TV, he quickly found the news channel, which was talking about the disturbance his arrival had caused, before changing scenes to a small fire somewhere outside the city. Apparently firefighters had just arrived on the scene, and were attempting to stop the fire. It was then that they switched back to the story of his arrival. They apparently were interviewing the worker who had been so kind as told Naruto to enter his mind. The man was still quite shaken, talking about a giant fox locked behind bars. Naruto actually laughed at that one. Apparently the mind link showed Kyuubi to the poor man. Naruto knew there had to be another reason the guy pissed his pants. Feeling some movement, Naruto noticed the girl beginning to wake up. As Tara awoke, the first thing she saw was that she couldn't see anything. Everything was just a complete blur of unrecognizable shapes and colors. But as her eyes regained focus, she took notice of the boy whose arm she was clutching. She quickly jumped away and ended up falling off the bed, earning a smirk from the blonde boy who was now helping her up. "Where am I? What happened?" she asked. "You're in my hotel room. I found you in a cave transformed into a statue. I freed you and brought you here. As for what happened before I got there, you tell me. There must have been a good story behind it, because the Titans left you a beautiful plaque," said Naruto, taking out the plaque, which he had brought with. "The Titans!" shouted Tara, jumping back to her feet. "What happened to them? Are they all right?" "Well, I just fought them, and they seemed fine." "The fact that they left you a plaque might say something as well," replied Naruto, handing Tara the plaque, bringing a tear to her eye as she read what was written. "Thank you for saving me, I guess, but who are you?" asked Tara, still slightly confused about the whole ordeal. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, former shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, new Kyuubi no Kitsune, Lord of Foxes and the Kitsune clans, Lord of the Nine Hells, and Emperor of the Demon Realm," said Naruto, causing Tara to back away at all his demonic titles. "However," he said, "I think the relevant question here is who are you, Tara? Who are you now and who were you before?" "What do you mean?" she asked warily, not sure where he was going with this. "You, my dear girl, are the reincarnation of another one of the demon lords, a demoness of the title Ichibi no Shikaku," replied Naruto as though it were the most simple thing in the world, which to him, it was simple. I think you've got me mistaken for someone else, said Terra, walking toward the door, until he said one thing which made her stop dead. You have power over the earth, don't you? Turning around, Terra looked him in the eye and found that she couldn't read this guy. Sure, she had been one of the Teen Titans for a while before betraying them, so her abilities over the earth weren't exactly a secret. It was, however, the way he said it, as if the answer proved his point. You probably don't realize this, but you probably have a gift for manipulating wind as well, as those two were the elements that Shikaki used. However, she usually didn't use wind as much, preferring to manipulate the sand to her will, said Naruto, repeating everything Kyuubi was telling him in his mind. Look me in the eye, Terra, and all will be truly explained. Doing as he asked, she was suddenly pulled into a sewer-like place. On one end of the room was a giant cage, seeming to contain nothing, until a giant pair of eyes opened, and a huge smirk appeared. Welcome, new Shikaku. I am the former Kyuubi. As you seem to be in disbelief, I think that showing the real Shikaku in action might bring you to understand just who you are. Suddenly, the entire area disappeared and Terra found herself floating above a large desert and two enormous creatures. One looked like a cross between a rabbit and a fox and had blood-red fur. The other she couldn't tell what it was. It looked like some sort of cross between a raccoon and some sort of dog. The two appeared to be fighting each other, the raccoon dog firing projectiles of sand at the fox, only for the fox to respond by sending a flame wave so great it turned them into molten glass. As the fox prepared another fire blast, the raccoon dog inhaled deeply and launched an air bullet at the fireball the fox had sent, causing a huge explosion. That's enough sparring for one day, little sister, said the fox, a red aura surrounding it. Terra realized that this thing was what she had seen in the cage. Suddenly the raccoon dog's body seemed to transform into sand, which fell away. Once all of it had fallen, Terra could see someone who looked nearly identical to herself crouching on a floating cloud of sand. The only real difference was the fact that she had black rings around her eyes that connected at the bridge of her nose, giving her the appearance of wearing a mask. She had an odd set of ears on top of her head, and a raccoon tail jutting from her tailbone. She also wore armor that was eerily similar to the suit she was wearing still, though hers looked like it was ancient. The fox roared before being consumed in red light. The light suddenly shrunk until it formed the shape of a person. The light faded, revealing a young man with long red hair which was kept tied back. He wore samurai-style armor and carried a katana. His eyes were blood-red with slitted pupils, just like the boy she had woke up next to, and he sported the same whisker-like markings, elongated fox ears and 9 flowing foxtails. Yeah, you're just mad cause your little one-tailed tanuki sister was kicking your huge 9-tailed butt, said the Terra lookalike, smirking. On the contrary, dear sister. All I had to do was launch one more fireball. By the time you prepared your air bullet, the fireball would be close enough that when they connected, the explosion would hit you. At that point I get behind you and finish the job while you're disoriented. That, Shikaku, would be checkmate, replied Kyuubi, causing her eyes to widen in realization before glaring at him and sticking out her tongue. Besides, as one of the tailed beasts you have your responsibilities, same as I have mine and the others have theirs. You have your domain to look after and rule, he said, gaining a groan in response. But it's so boring, said the exasperated Shikaku. All I do is watch the desert people. They never do anything. I have nobody to talk to, and there really isn't a need for this job. Oh, I am the ruler of a bunch of sand. Don't I feel special? Please, replied Kyuubi. All I get all the time is bitching and moaning. I haven't gotten a good night's sleep in forever. Suck it up, you're a bijou, a demoness, get used to it. Take some pride in what you are, he finished, turning into a red mist before disappearing into the ground, leaving her grumbling as she turned into sand and scattered with the wind. Not a moment later, Terra was pulled back to reality. Do you believe us now? Asked Naruto, her eyes snapping toward the blonde. So if I'm her reincarnation, how did she die? Asked Terra. We don't exactly know, replied Naruto. What we do know is that you are her reincarnated, though we believe that instead of a demon or human, you are a half-breed, a Hanyu. As such, according to the fuzzball you met in my mind, I can turn you into a full demon if you want, giving you greater access to your powers. What if I say no? Asked Terra. Then you are free to leave and go wherever you please, I won't stop you. If you say yes, it would be best that you stay here so you can train properly. Of course, if you still wish to leave, that's your choice, replied Naruto. Terra struck up a thinking pose. She really knew nothing about this guy, if he could be trusted or not. She had gone with Slade so she could gain control of her powers, and look what happened. She wasn't even sure that the Titans would even let her in their door, and she couldn't blame them if they wouldn't. She figured she was already in deep, and she did technically owe the guy for saving her. Not to mention the fact that she just found out she was a demoness in a past life. She had to know more. Alright, she said. I'll do it. For anyone interested, Naruto's fox look is getting a redo. Basically, his attire is very similar to V's in V for Vendetta. Great movie BTW. If you've never watched it, you should. There are a few minor differences though. First off, Naruto now wears a Zoro-style mask to cover the upper part of his face and hair. His eyes are Spider-Man style, blood red, he can see out, but others can't see in. His ears do stick out and fit through his hat as well. His lower part of his face is covered in a secondary mask similar to Kakashi's, but it also has a metal faceplate on the front. Both masks are black. The other main difference is that he has a steel-clawed gauntlet on his left arm. The claws are sharp, but not big and bulky enough to restrict the use of hand seals. Hope I created a good enough picture. I'm looking for someone to draw it and send me a picture, because I have no artistic talent. Disclaimer: I do not own Naruto, Teen Titans, or any other character or thing from the DC universe. Excellent, replied Naruto. Training starts tomorrow, along with your transformation. I warn you, however, according to the fuzzball, it'll be painful as hell. The bed is yours, I can take the floor. With that, Terra watched, astounded, as the blonde before her fell dead asleep before she could argue the point with him. She sighed before taking the bed. She found herself unable to sleep, however, and instead watched the different exploits of the Titans on the television, memories of her time with them and her betrayal flashing through her mind. The Titans were all either woken up by Beast Boy's shout, or in Robin's case interrupted in his sweeping the city via computer. Geez BB, some of us are trying to sleep, said Cyborg, who entered the main room, followed shortly by a drowsy Starfire and an irate Raven. Guys, I just and then I went and now she's gone. Shout Beast Boy, almost frantically. Cool it, Beast Boy, what are you talking about? Asked Robin, grabbing a hold of Beast Boy's shoulders firmly. Terra, she's gone. The entire team's eyes widened at that. Are you sure? Asked Raven. Yeah. Remember, I was talking that the only one who could ever go up against us and win was Slade. Well, that got me thinking about Terra, so I went to visit her, and the statue is gone, said Beast Boy between gulps of air. I installed cameras all over the place. Let's see what happened, said Cyborg, punching in some commands on the computer before it showed the cave. Sure enough, Terra was gone. He rewound the footage and stopped at a point in which she was still there. They watched intently, before the very person that had beaten the team fell from the room of the cavern. By the looks of it, he landed very painfully, much to the team's pleasure. He seemed to examine the Terra statue before three of his tails began thrashing before they glowed and shot a light into the guy's hand. The ball of light seemed to glow with every color, before the teen shoved the baseball-sized orb into Terra's chest. The glowing orb absorbed directly into the statue, which began glowing in all colors with the same intensity as the orb. The light grew brighter and brighter until a blinding white light filled the cave, knocking out their video for a moment. As the light died down, the statue shattered, revealing the sleeping girl within, who fell and was caught by the teen. Picking her up bridal style, he quickly left the cavern. Dude, said Beast Boy. He just accomplished in 5 seconds what we've been trying to do for months, said Raven, slightly impressed. Unfortunately, as good as it is that she's alive, she may very well be our enemy again, said Robin, getting a nod from Cyborg. Oh, I hope that you are wrong, said Starfire, not wanting to believe that her friend was once again her enemy. The next morning, tell me again what we're doing on the beach, asked Terra, shivering slightly at the cold morning sea air. I told you, replied Naruto. We are turning you into a full demon. As Shikako was quite literally made of sand, you will be too. He continued, drawing a circle of strange symbols in the sand around her. Could you at least let me put some clothes on? Asked Terra, looking around. Naruto had managed to get her armor off of her, but he had refused to give her any clothes. He said she wouldn't need any once he was done, that she would be able to form her own from sand. She personally thought it was some other, more perverted reason, though he denied it. So, there she was, in nothing but a bra and panties on the beach in the early morning. Hold on and you can have any clothes of your choosing. We'll be better off doing this with as much bare skin as possible. Believe it or not, the sand has to touch your body for your body to convert to sand, finished Naruto with a grin under his mask, while finishing up making the necessary seals in the sand. He honestly was not sure about what would happen, as he was only doing as the old fox instructed him. Now, he said, let's begin. We have to find her. She could be in some sort of trouble, said Beast Boy to the team, or she could be plotting our downfall. Who knows what that guy has told her? With all the things that have happened, her mind probably isn't in the best shape right now, replied Robin, doing still more research to find out about the strange person the team fought and lost to. As the conversation kept going, Raven began to feel slightly uneasy, before a shockwave of demonic power coursed through the air, the rest of the team oblivious to it. Running to the window, she and the other Titans watched a bolt of red light shoot into the sky. Before Robin could even give the word, Raven engulfed herself and the team in her power, letting it take the shape of a bird which soared off toward the source of the power. They arrived on the beach to see the guy from yesterday with a new set of threads. And standing in front of him was Terra, half naked in a ring of glowing runes and seals. Whoa, said Raven, causing Naruto to turn around and smirk beneath his mask before forming the half-ram seal and stomping his foot. The seals on the ground began to glow brighter before the sand began swirling around Terra as though a tornado had touched down. Red and yellow lightning arced around the mini sandstorm, sometimes lighting the inside of the tornado, allowing the group to see a silhouette of the girl inside, generally looking to be in some painful positions. As soon as it had started, it ended. The sand froze where it was and suddenly plummeted to the ground. Terra was nowhere in sight. Naruto was suddenly attacked and pinned to the ground by Beast Boy, who had morphed into a tiger. The tiger then morphed back into Beast Boy, who had Naruto pinned down by standing on him. What did you do to her? He shouted, only causing a laugh to escape Naruto's throat. Oh, I can assure you she's quite fine. She's probably just getting used to the improvements I've made to her body. She's right here actually, and since I know she can hear me, it would be nice to get this guy off me, Ichibi replied Naruto, before the sand picked up Beast Boy and while it was careful not to hurt him, brought him back to the Titans. The remaining sand around Naruto then began to rise up. It rose before falling back to the ground, before rising slightly higher and once more falling. The next time it rose, it began to take form, before two glowing yellow eyes opened on the mass of sand opened and the sand transformed back into Terra. She was different, however. This time she had on an ancient-looking armor, not unlike the one she had worn while working for Slade. Her ears were gone, replaced instead with animalistic ears on top of her head, and a large raccoon tail jutting from her tailbone. When her eyes stopped glowing, the Titans saw that her eyes were pure black with an odd yellow pupil, before they too faded back to their normal colors. Around her eyes, dark rings formed that connected and formed a mask-like marking around her eyes. She stared at her arms, before letting one thing escape her lips. I told you it would hurt, said Naruto. You never had to go through with this. Naruto suddenly disappeared before reappearing before Terra. I think it's time we train you in the use of your full power, said Naruto, before giving a casual wave to the Titans. Beast Boy lunged at the Naruto, taking the form of a wolf. However, just as he was about to reach him, both he and Terra disappeared in a blast of wind, leaves, and sand. Okay, just what is going on here? I mean, did everybody see what just happened? He turned a girl into living sand? Shouted Cyborg. What was that he called Terra? Everybody looked to see Raven hovering, a slightly shocked look adorning the part of her face they could see that wasn't shadowed by her hood. What are you talking about, Raven? Asked Robin. Before the sand moved Beast Boy off that guy, he called her something. Did anyone hear what he said? Asked Raven, landing on the beach. Yes, said Beast Boy. I think he called her a chibi, whatever that means. I think I know, said Raven. Let's get back to the tower. I think I have an idea of what just happened. What? Asked Starfire. I think our new friend is a demon. And if I'm correct, Terra is too, she said. What? Shouted the rest of the team, before once more being swallowed by Raven's power and flown back to Titan's tower. Terra and Naruto appeared just outside of the city, in a part of the woods that had not been burned the night before. Now, said Naruto, your training begins. And your first lesson meditation. Terra shot him a confused look. We're going to be teaching you how to manipulate an energy source inside your own body. In order to do that, you have to first find it. And you can do so through meditation, he said, sitting down cross-legged, indicating her to do the same. She sat down in the same position as him, before he instructed her further. I found it, said Raven, entering the main room with an old tome that looked like it was falling apart. She opened it, before flipping pages and stopping on one, pointing to a particular picture, indicating for the other Titans to look. When they did, a collective gasp was heard. No way, uttered Beast Boy, as he looked at a picture in the book that looked almost exactly like Terra. It wasn't as clear as a photo, but the drawn picture was nearly identical to the blonde. It sported the same animal features that Terra now sported. The group tried to find out more, but the book was written in something that looked almost Japanese, but seemed different, like an older dialect. Raven clued them in. This was created by a man called Jiraiya. He was one of very few survivors of a disaster that shaped the face of the world, said Raven. What do you mean? What happened that caused such a disaster? Asked Starfire. This is a picture of the Ichibi no Shikaku. Back in those times, there were 9 legendary demons known as the Tailed Beasts. They ranged in power from the one-tail, Ichibi, which was the weakest, to Kyubi, the 9-tailed fox, which was the strongest. According to legend, they were each sealed inside 9 humans, to be used not only as human weapons, but as ways to keep them from destroying their homes. Apparently, Ichibi no Shikaku was sealed in a boy named Gaara, said Raven, flipping the page to show a boy with red hair, a large gourd on his back, and a tattoo on his forehead. The leader of the village of Konoha sealed the 9-tailed fox inside a young boy named Naruto, who would later become the apprentice of Jiraiya. According to the book, approximately 16 years after the sealing, Naruto vanished without a trace. She continued, What does this have to do with a world-shaping disaster? Asked Beast Boy. I'm getting to that. Apparently a group of people known as the Akatsuki were gathering the demons and used some sort of ritual to seal them in a statue. But without the Kyubi to stabilize the power that was contained, the statue exploded and killed off many. And from the combined power of those demons, a new power was born. His name Trigon. Terra shouted loudly as a kick connected to her stomach, knocking her back. She held her stomach in pain as she looked at her instructor. While she could do without the pain, it was better than having Slade hurt her for no reason. She got back on her feet. Come on, Terra. I know you can do better than this, shouted Naruto, looking for the entire world as if he hadn't been fighting at all. Getting up, she settled into her fighting stance, one of the most useful things Slade had actually taught her. The man had also taught her to do one of 2 things. Either wait for your enemy to make the first move, or wait until you can make a move to finish your enemy. However, she wasn't the greatest student in the world, as evidenced by her rushing headlong at her opponent. Naruto merely whipped around and threw a backspin kick, connecting with her head, and sending half of it flying off, breaking into particles of sand, before flying back to her and forming a new head. Before she could react further, Naruto continued his onslaught, throwing a turning side kick into her stomach. He hit her with such force that his foot actually went through her. However, quickly compacting the sand, she captured his foot in her abdomen. Flipping backward at a previously thought impossible angle, she flipped Naruto with her, crashing his head into the ground. Before she could get away, however, he merely righted himself and twisted, snapping his foot free and knocking her on her ass. That was good, but even one of the Titans could have turned that around. You control the earth, get creative, said Naruto, before Terra's eyes became glowing yellow voids. Before Naruto could react, the ground around him rose up in 2 giant slabs of earth, before slamming together, with him in between. Terra looked smug, but only for a minute, as the ground she had used to crush her teacher shook violently before exploding, her teacher inside unharmed, tails swaying elegantly. One of the tails, however, suddenly shot forward, hitting her head with such force that, while not causing it to reduce to sand, it still managed to knock her unconscious. Terra, though unconscious, was still working with her mind at an increased speed. Visions passed before her, blurs of colors, before her mind seemed to settle, taking her to a heavily forested area. Trees and hundreds of other plants seemed to take up the entire landscape. And in the center, she saw 6 people, 3 of which she thought she recognized. One of the 3 she was sure she recognized. He had red hair, and carried a large gourd on his back. She couldn't hear much of what was being said, but one of the people threw what looked like umbrellas into the air. They opened and began to spin, needles raining down from each one as though they were being fired from a gun. The needles seemed to impact, drawing a cloud of dust. When it cleared, she saw that the redhead was protected by a hardened shell of sand that had erected around him. The boy held out his hand and the sand seemed to flow like water to the man who had thrown the umbrellas. It wrapped and coiled around him, forming what looked like a giant cocoon of sand, which rose into the air. Holding his hand out, she managed to catch what the redhead was saying. "Sand coffin!" he shouted. "Desert burial!" With that, he clenched his outstretched hand into a fist, before the sand instantly compacted as much as it could, crushing the man instantly, with a scream that would be etched into her mind forever. And as quickly as it happened, it ended, and she returned to the land of consciousness just in time to see Naruto 10 feet in the air about to land a knee to her face. She quickly rolled from her place on the ground in time, and Naruto hit just where her head would have been. As she stood, she remembered the strange vision she had had while momentarily knocked out. Naruto ran at her quickly, but Terra held out her hand, and all the sand her body could spare without deteriorating flew at Naruto, wrapping him up in a smaller, yet similar cocoon to the one from her dream. Squeezing her hand, the sand imploded, crushing her teacher yet again. Pulling the sand back to her, she saw the utterly mangled form of her teacher. But before her eyes, a red aura surrounded him, and he seemed to regenerate, until he returned to the condition he was originally in. Terra resumed her fighting stance, but stopped as Naruto put his hand up to stop her. "I think that's enough sparring for one day, Terra," he said. "I want you to go back to the hotel room and practice simple control exercises." "And what are you going to do?" asked Terra, her eyes reverting from the yellow light back to her normal ones. "I'm going to walk around for a while. My pockets are beginning to feel a bit empty," he replied before turning his back to her and beginning to walk away. However, before he took more than 5 steps, he disappeared in a swirl of wind and leaves, leaving Terra to walk back to the hotel room the two shared. As she walked, she began thinking back on the weeks she had been back in the world of the living. She had yet to see the Titans after the incident on the beach, and since then, had made a far more powerful connection to her past life. She didn't know it at first, but Naruto eventually explained to her that her dreams and flashing images were memories from the past Shikaku. The last one she had seen, however, was obviously a memory of the one Naruto had told her about, the one known as Gaara. But why had she seen his memory? Whatever the reason, she was glad she learned the technique from it. Maybe that was the reason Naruto ended their training. And speaking of Naruto, he had certainly been more than a puzzle to her. During training, he was perhaps more of a taskmaster than Slade, yet he was doing almost everything he instructed her to do and made it look easy. But when they weren't training, he was her best friend, getting her food, allowing her to sleep on the only bed the hotel room had, which she had tried to give to him several times, yet he rejected her offers. On 1 or 2 occasions when her memories of both Shikaku and her time with the Titans and Slade became too much, he either attempted to distract her, or let her cry on his shoulder. In a way, he almost reminded her of Beast Boy. Granted, at times he could be more beast than boy, but still, there was that simple innocence that you wouldn't believe was there, yet still shone bright. Yet at times, it seemed as though he were all mischief maker and thief, and on one occasion, which Terra remembered fondly, he had been darker than she thought possible. Flashback. Terra awoke to the sound of mumbling. Rolling over, she tried to ignore it, as Naruto tended to mumble in his sleep. However, tonight was different than the other nights since she had met him. Getting out of bed, she looked over at Naruto, who was tossing and turning in his sleep. Naruto? She asked hesitantly, but it didn't wake him. She noticed he was sweating profusely, and his face was contorted into a painful grimace. Naruto, wake up, she said louder this time, but still there was no effect on the blonde, who seemed lost in his nightmare. Naruto? She said again, trying to tap the blonde. However, before she reached him, his eyes snapped open and he snapped up. No! He shouted, grabbing her wrist and gripping it tight with his nails, drawing blood. He seemed to look around, frightened, as if he had no idea where he was. His breathing was shallow and quick as his gaze darted across the room, until it met Terra, her eyes flashing with genuine concern, her wrist dripping some blood from where he was clawing her. Naruto quickly dropped her wrist as though it were a poisonous snake. He looked shocked for a moment, before dropping his face into his hands and sighing. They just sat there for a while, not saying anything until, I'm sorry. Terra looked at Naruto for a moment, as if she hadn't heard him. I'm sorry, he said again, looking at her, and she was startled at his eyes. They had gone from a blood red to a cerulean blue color. She didn't know that was his natural eye color, so she was a little shocked. Go back to bed. I'm going to take a walk, clear my head, he said, getting up. Are you okay? That sounded like something really bad, said Terra. No! Shouted Naruto, turning to her, showing her his eyes had reverted back to their normal red color. This is my problem. I have to do things on my own. With no warning, he disappeared in the way that he does, a swirl of wind and leaves, leaving Terra staring at the spot he had been, her arm already healing and reconstructing with sand. Flashback end. Terra entered the hotel room, before sitting on the bed and flipping on the TV, before picking up a handful of sand that they kept on hand, before instead of using her natural power, used her chakra to shape and move the sand. Naruto walked along the street, transformed into his civilian garb. He had to admit, of all his new abilities, he loved shape-shifting the most. After picking several pockets, and beating the crap out of some thugs who had tried to rob him. As he walked, his thoughts trailed off to Terra. That move she had used, it was Gaara's. He didn't exactly like the idea of the move, but she had gained one of Gaara's techniques. It was interesting to him. He continued down the sidewalk, before spying something interesting. The Teen Titan Raven was walking down into a bookstore. His kitsune curiosity got the better of him, and he went in after her. Walking in, he noticed how dark the bookstore was. He wasn't surprised, considering Raven was going here, but still, he found Raven at the counter, speaking with the shopkeeper. His keen hearing allowed him to hear what was being said. Hi, Raven, said the shopkeeper in an oddly cheery voice considering the atmosphere in the room. You just browsing, or looking for something in particular? Actually, replied the Dark Titan, I'm looking for a very old book, one that I think might be in your private collection. Well, if it's a really old book, then I probably do have it in my collection. What's it called? He asked. The Tales of Jiraiya of the Toads, replied Raven, almost making Naruto trip. There was a book about the pervy sage. It could be his chance to know what had happened. I have a couple actually. Really interesting book. Took me a while, but I got the damn thing translated to English and I've copied them down. You should be able to find one around here somewhere. So is this business or pleasure? He asked. Business. I have his later book, but it doesn't go into detail about his lost apprentice, replied Raven, sparking Naruto's interest even more. Well, if it's the apprentice you're looking for, you'll find it in this book, replied the shopkeeper, reaching onto a shelf and pulling out a copy of the book. Really interesting book. It talks of things that wouldn't even exist for millennia as if they had them at their disposal. There's even a mention of a movie theater in here. A movie theater, can you imagine? Raven merely took the book from the man and paid the cost, before leaving the bookstore. Little did she know, she had an uninvited guest. As Raven made her way back to Titan's Tower, walking instead of flying, she suddenly got a strange feeling, as if she was being followed. Turning around, she saw the street packed with cars and the sidewalk filled with people, but couldn't find anyone watching her. Seeing no one, she turned around to continue on her way, but suddenly felt something wrap around her waist and pull her into the alleyway. Looking down, she realized what had grabbed her before she was slammed into a wall and pinned against it by foxes' tails. Well, Fancy meeting you here, Raven. I saw you get a book from the store. I hear it's a good read. Mind if I borrow it? He said, before reaching with his tails to try and pry the book from her hand. I know who you are. Your name is Naruto Uzumaki, apprentice to the Toad Sage, said Raven. So what if I am? What's it to you? Said Naruto. Why are you here? What happened to you? Asked Raven, watching before her eyes as Fox's mask became a red mist, before disappearing completely. If I knew that, why would I want this book? Fact of the matter is, I know what happened. I'm just trying to figure out what happened after I left, replied Naruto, ripping the book from Raven's hand. What did you do to Terra? Asked Raven. I simply allowed her to realize the life she once lived. She is the reincarnation of the Shikaku, and therefore, as Kyuubi, it is my duty to show her how to be the new Ichibi, replied Naruto. Don't look at me like that, continued Naruto, as Raven glared at him with utter hatred. We're not so different, you and I. Yeah, right, retorted Raven, only for Naruto to get in close. For one thing, he said, our powers are both demonic in nature. Yes, I can feel the demonic energy flow through you, half-breed. Raven looked angry for a moment, before beginning to chant. Azarath Metrians in her chant was cut off, however, when Naruto pulled her in and ed her. She attempted to fight it once the shock had worn off, but something in her seemed to accept it. As much as she wanted to, she could break away. She felt herself getting lost in the. During this time, her intense emotional control slipped, causing her powers to be unleashed on the world around them. Parked cars and mailboxes, windows and dumpsters in the alleyway, began to be enchanted with Raven's dark power, shaking violently before exploding or being picked up and thrown. As quickly as it had begun, the ended, leaving a Raven stunned for a moment. What was she tried to say, before she took a rather intense uppercut to the stomach, and was released from the grip of Naruto's tails as he walked away, book in hand. As she was about to pass out from everything happening, she saw Naruto walk away, before disappearing in a blast of wind and leaves.